What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today, we're going to be talking about the NFL's top free agents who have yet to sign. We're going to tell you everything you need to know about why they're not signing and where they could end up. All that and much more coming your way right now! Nick, NFL free agency is fully in effect. We are here. We have seen many moves take place, but we have also been surprised to see a lot of big names not being talked about. And I mean, there's plenty of names to go around. I mean, I have a list of 25 here, and I would have thought that at least half of these guys were going to be signed. But I want to start with the wide receiving group. I believe that, the wide receivers are really in a bad hole right now. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, so it seems as if the wide receivers didn't get the memo that the salary cap went down this year, and they're still asking for $20 million a season, and they're not budging from that number. Well, with only about 10 teams in the NFL that have $20 million of cap space, there is a very small market of teams that are able to go after him, let alone that need their talent. And so it's a buyer's market. It's up to the GMs whether they want the player or not at this point. They don't really have too much competition. And the wide receivers need to get it through their thick heads that they're going to have to take a 1-year deal to prove it and say, hey, I'm worth the money. Next year when the salary cap goes up, that's when you're going to make your payday. There's a huge problem with the wide receivers being divas and dramatizing this whole scenario. These guys should have been the first ones to sign in free agency during the tampering period, and we're now into the full free agency, and none of the big names have been signed yet. They're going to end up budging because as more players are being signed to these teams, there are less teams with the cap space needed to sign them to contracts they're looking for. And right now, there's only a couple teams that are really in the market for guys like this. And as we're seeing right now, the Bengals, the Giants, and possibly the Colts are the only names out there of teams that are willing to pay the high price for these wide receivers. Once those teams have one of these receivers, the rest are just going to be SOL. They're going to be taking deals of less value and playing for a contract that is below their value because they decided they didn't want to budge from their number.
Yeah, I mean, the wide receivers we're talking about here are Kenny Golladay, Juju Smith-Schuster, Curtis Samuel, T.Y. Hilton. I mean, these are incredible receivers that are not being signed because they refuse to budge from the numbers that they're looking for. And it seems to me, like you said, that there's already a lack of suitors because of how deep this draft class is at the wide receiver position, but also how deep the NFL is at the wide receiver position. We're looking at one of the deepest position groups in the NFL because over the last 4 or 5 years, that's what we have had is very deep wide receiver classes, and they have come in and continuously worked and proved that they are above rookie contract status. They are playing above board, and that's what's leaving Golladay and Smith-Schuster and all these guys out on the outside looking in.
And I think part of it is too, you mentioned we've had big wide receiver classes in the past. Well, look at this upcoming draft. It's stocked full of talent. Yes, there's the big three with Jamar and Devonta and Jalen at the top. But you also have guys like Terrace Marshall and Rashad Bateman and Kadarius Toney and so many others that they're B tier in the draft, but they could be top tier wide receivers in the NFL. They're all burners. They're all big bodies. They can all be explosive players. And why get a guy who's $20 million a year for 3 years and you're going to end up releasing him after the first year when you could get a guy in the first round and have him under contract for 5 years, and the price of 5 years is equal to 1 year with a veteran wide receiver? The math doesn't make sense for some of these teams, and that's why they're going to wait this out, wait till the draft, and get a guy who has potential to be the next Kenny Golladay instead of paying Kenny Golladay now.
Yeah, and just to add one more name that I missed, Will Fuller is also on that list. So I want to make sure that Will Fuller gets his justice in there as well. Um, okay, so besides the wide receivers, which as an entire position group has been really questioned by everyone, I want to take a look at some of the other free agents here that haven't signed, and let us know what you think their market kind of looks like. So right now, I'm looking at Vikings safety Anthony Harris.
Yeah, Anthony Harris. Right now, it seems as if he's working out a deal with the Minnesota Vikings, and he's probably getting offers from other teams, but none that we're truly aware of at the moment. It does seem as if he does want to stay in Minnesota, and so he's not truly listening to the other offers. But there are other teams out there, and one in particular, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Safety is one of their big needs this offseason. I'm sure they put out a huge offer for him, but right now, I think he's looking to stay in Minnesota.
Let's take a look at the Seahawks and Bengals edge rusher Carlos Dunlap.
Yeah, Carlos Dunlap, he was cut earlier this offseason on March 8th after he was a cap casualty, and he was great for the Seahawks last year. I don't understand why the Seahawks have not made an offer to him to try to get him back on a veteran-friendly deal. I think that Carlos Dunlap, he's getting up there in age, but he's like a fine wine. He's aging very well and getting better. And I think that if he's in the right system, he's going to produce. So I think the market over time is going to expand for a guy like that because he's willing to take a little bit less money. But I think that he's better off staying in a place like Seattle where he's a proven commodity.
Just a few more here that I want to really hone in on. Broncos cornerback AJ Bouye.
AJ Bouye is a tough one because he suffered an injury last year. He suffered an injury when he was a Jacksonville Jaguar. This guy has a bad injury history. He had some great years in Houston and in Jacksonville, but he definitely has past his prime and he is on the back end of his career. He's going to be one of these guys that is on the market for the next possible 2 months and is going to end up taking a veteran minimum deal to be on a team to be the second or third corner on the roster. He's definitely not a number one anymore.
Titans edge rusher Adaveon Clowney.
Again, Clowney's another interesting one. He's not Jadeveon Clowney from the Houston or Jadeveon Clowney from the Seahawks. If you saw him last year in Tennessee, where edge rushers have been explosive in the past under Mike Vrabel, Clowney was nothing like he has shown to be in the past. Clowney was a shell of himself, really, and I think that he burned himself out in the early years of his career, and I think that he has just trying to been going after big paydays because he knows his body isn't keeping up. I don't see that Jadeveon Clowney is the big ticket item that he used to be, and that GMs are getting smart to how he's playing now and know his true value, and he's not getting off that value. So once he comes to terms with saying, I'm willing to take less money to play for a team because that's what my true value is, that until that happens, he's going to be on the market.
Just two more now. And I'm going to group a couple of these guys together. I'm looking at Mitchell Schwartz. I'm looking at Eric Fisher, and I'm looking at Alejandro Villanueva, the tackles.
Yeah, I'll start off with Mitchell Schwartz first because he's the right tackle. There's a couple teams in this league, specifically the Bengals, that come to mind that need a right tackle. They're missing one. The Packers, too, that I'm thinking about it. Rick Wagner has been, he's not on the Packers anymore. They could use a right tackle as well. So I think there are some teams out there that definitely need a right tackle. But as we've seen, right tackles get paid nowhere near like left tackles. They get pretty much half the value. And so Mitchell Schwartz is going to be sitting. He's an aging right tackle, yet he's still good. He's still Pro Bowl caliber, and he's coming off an injury that definitely hurts him as well. For Villanueva and Eric Fisher, expect him to not be touched. He tore his Achilles not even 2 months ago. He's going to be out for pretty much the next another calendar year. So I don't even know if he'll be on a roster next season. He might just sit the season and get healthy. Villanueva, I think that he's playing the long game with the Steelers. I think he'll end up going back. The market for him, he's an above average left tackle, but I think that he fits well in that system, and he knows that he's going to take a team friendly deal with the Steelers to return.
And the final one, which is one of the most interesting to me, Colts cornerback Xavier Rhodes.
Xavier Rhodes, great cornerback, and he showed it last year just because he didn't fit well in Mike Zimmer's system the last couple of years of that in Minnesota. He showed that he was great in Indianapolis, and that's what made he was a big part of the reason why the Colts were one of the best defenses last year. There should be a big market for Xavier Rhodes. He's not going to get a big payday because he is on the back end of his career. He's in his 30s, and so he doesn't have that top end speed to keep up with a lot of number one wide receivers. But as a number two corner, he offers a lot of value, and he offers a lot of leadership on and off the field in that locker room. So I think Xavier Rhodes is going to fit well on any team, but he's going to take a team friendly deal and most likely stay back with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and I agree with every sentiment that you had. And just to continue the list for everybody watching at home, just to see how deep this list actually goes, we're still missing Mitchell Trubisky, David Andrews, Kyle Van Noy, Gerald Everett, Brian Poole, Justin Houston, KJ Wright, Melvin Ingram. I mean, the list goes on of top tier talent that is still available. These players have to understand and they have to realize that the reason that we're in this situation, why a lot of these guys are even available, is simply because the cap went down for the first time in over a decade. The NFL had an issue with last year with COVID. Now they're responding with the lower cap number. These teams have done everything in their power to get underneath it. These players have to do their part in accepting at least 1 year deals, maybe not worth as much, but get a 1 year deal, get a prove it deal, and then go back into free agency next year when the cap is expected to go up by upwards of $20 million.
Yeah, and one thing we also should mention is each team has to meet a minimum value on the of their cap. So the floor is 90% of the entire cap. They're going to have to spend around $170 million of their cap to meet the requirement. So teams are going to have to spend money this offseason. I think teams right now, general managers are trying to figure out the lay of the land, try to figure out what the price is for each position as it stands, because you can get players a lot cheaper than you can in other years. Right now you can get David Andrews, who's probably normally $8 million a year, but you might probably get him for $5-6 million a season right now if you play your cards right. And it's all about playing the waiting game. The longer that a player's on the market, the more their value drops.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And this is a different year for sure. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we addressed all of this with you guys. All right, well, that's going to do it for now. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.